The world of technology is always full of exciting and resourceful news. So before we begin, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe, and then let's go ahead and dive into our first article talking about supersonic flights. Boom supersonic test plane breaks the sound barrier for the first time. 10 months after its long-delayed first subsonic flight took place last March, Boom's supersonic prototype test plane, the XB-1, broke the sound barrier recently 3 times during its 12th flight. The XB-1 is a smaller scale demonstration version of the larger Overture airliner Boom wants to eventually build that will carry 64 passengers on supersonic international flights at cruising speeds of up to Mach 1.7, similar to the service that Concorde offered before it retired in 2003. After taking off from the Mojave Air and Spaceport in California, Boom's chief test pilot Tristan Bradenberg flew the XB-1 to an altitude of 34,000 feet before hitting a top speed of Mach 1.1, around 844 miles per hour, for approximately 4 minutes. The 63-foot-long plane is powered by 3 General Electric J85-15 turbojet engines, but the company plans to develop and build the 4 engines needed to power the larger Overture airliner on its own after Boom's partnership with Rolls-Royce ended in 2022. Although its first successful supersonic flight is a milestone for Boom Supersonic, there's still a lot of development and test flights needed for the company to achieve its current goal of Overture taking the first flight by 2030. So it looks like in the world of technology, 2030 is going to be that year that's going to look completely different from anything we've seen before. We could be having supersonic flights like these in the air with drones flying around, air taxis, new types of energy being utilized, delivery robots out on the sidewalks, autonomous vehicles out on the road, robo-taxis out on the road, all interesting things. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about briefly with you was that Mach speed. Now, we saw Mach 1.1 was about 844 miles per hour, but to give you some insight on how fast Mach 1.7 is, it shows here that Mach 1.7 is 1,304 miles per hour. So could you imagine being on a plane that is going that fast? And I do wonder, is it going to be safe for the people when it comes to our bodies? Is it going to damage any part of our bodies, our cells, or anything like that? I have no clue. Our current commercial planes are usually going about 500 to 600 miles per hour, but this is beyond that. This is double, triple that. And being on one of those flights, it could look something like this. But all jokes aside, if this ends up being safe for people to be on where they can go from one place to another, personally, I would be interested in it because you can take international flights from one place to another. So just imagine going from LA to London. Instead of a 11-hour flight, it could possibly be cut down to maybe 3 or 4 hours or 5 hours or something like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this develops, what's going to happen with this company, how they can get to a point where they can utilize these type of aircrafts for commercial flights, and I wonder what people are going to want to get on this flight. So comment down below in the comment section if you could find yourself riding on one of these supersonic aircrafts in the future. Let's move on to the next article talking about Flippy. Miso Robotics refines Flippy fry station with AI and partners. Miso Robotics Incorporated recently launched its next generation Flippy fry station robot. The company said the system runs on its kitchen AI to automate the preparation of French fries, onion rings, chicken, tacos, and other fried foods. Miso Robotics said the next generation Flippy Fry Station is based on 5 years of lessons and protected by more than 25 patents. It is designed to address key operational challenges for restaurants with the following features: scalable reliability, compact design, install in hours, enhanced vision and speed, better team experience, and other benefits such as 24/7 support in English and Spanish through a modernized support infrastructure. Compared with the prior version, the new Flippy is half the size, twice as fast, far more reliable, and installs in existing kitchens overnight in just a few hours, 75% less time, said Miso. The company designed the system with restaurant partners, including longtime partner White Castle, to cater to QSR operators' expectations. With no upfront costs and a rental price of $5,400 per month, the new generation of Flippy generally usually cost less than the equivalent of full-time employees, so there is little downside for the restaurant operators, Dennis Locke, head of sales, stated. In addition, Miso has scheduled rollouts to additional White Castle locations, Jack in the Box, and several other large brands for early 2025 in both corporate and franchisee locations. Now, inside this article, there was a very important quote, and it said this: "In a market where labor shortages and labor costs can no longer be passed on to customers through menu price increases, Flippy and kitchen automation like it provide the restaurant industry's best solution." So based on that quote right there, this could be a reason why more restaurants moving forward in the future could start to look at something like this being implemented into their locations, even though it's just starting off with White Castle and then Jack in the Box, and there's going to be other restaurants as well. You could start to see these in the likes of a McDonald's, a Wendy's, and also a Popeyes, and all those other fast food chains who might be having issues related to labor shortages or other problems that we don't know about. Now, another thing to point out in addition to that is the fact that with these jobs in these fast food chains, they don't provide the amount of income that people need to live on. So that could be why there's a labor shortage. But then in addition to that, people pull up to these places day and night and they want their food and they want their items. So in order to fill that void, companies are looking more towards robotic technology to fill those voids. So this could be the future of the restaurant industry when it comes to fast food chains. And as time moves on and we continue in this technological future, you could one day be pulling up to an establishment that is strictly ran by robotic technology. Let's move on to the next article. Vietnam's military-run postal service is building robots to deliver on the country's e-commerce boom. On Christmas Eve in 2024, a warehouse in suburban Hanoi kept pace with the festive season frenzy. Thousands of packages intended for Shopee and TikTok Shop customers were offloaded, sorted, and dispatched to an unceasing rhythm. On the warehouse floor, however, there were barely any people in sight. Instead, about 200 beetle-shaped robots whirred across the facility, moving concave trays loaded with packages. The robots, called Automated Guided Vehicles, AGV, were first unveiled by Viettel Post, a postal and courier service company owned by Vietnam's Ministry of National Defense, in January 2024. The robots are part of Viettel's Post efforts to reap the dividends of the online shopping boom in Vietnam, one of the fastest growing e-commerce markets in Southeast Asia. In the Hanoi warehouse, the introduction of the robots and other warehousing technology has helped Viettel Post shorten delivery times by 8 to 10 hours, grow output by 3.5 times, and increase processing capacity for the entire system to about 4 million parcels a day, which roughly amounts to meeting 50% of Vietnam's e-commerce capacity, a company spokesperson told Rest of World. Alright, so that's some news related to robotics and warehousing, but I did want to bring that article to you because we always talk about robotics and warehouses in the US, and it's important to know about news outside of the US when it comes to other places implementing this technology to expand and grow their business. So globally, as life begins to pick up and things start to move a little bit faster than they normally do, and there's always going to be a demand there in different industries, companies are 100% going to look towards robotics because it gives them that opportunity to not only meet that demand, but scale and grow to be prepared for even more demand in the future. So if you are out there in Vietnam, comment down below in the comment section on your thoughts related to this article and the e-commerce boom in your country. In the next article, we have VSEB's VS-9 electric hydrofoiling boat begins passenger operations. Nascent electric hydrofoil boat builder VSEB shared another key milestone this week, putting its first electric hydrofoiling boat into commercial operations. Ferry transport company Fuller's 360 is now operating the ultra-efficient VS-9 vessel to transport tourists and other passengers. As promised, VSEB's first electric hydrofoiling boat has begun commercial ferry operations in Auckland, New Zealand with Fuller's 360. The quiet, sustainable vessel has been dubbed Kermadec and is now transporting passengers on tourism trips across Auckland's waterways. The VS-9 will transport its passengers at speeds of up to 29 miles per hour and can travel up to 57 miles on a single charge. With its first electric hydrofoiling boat in operation, VSEB will look to deploy additional sustainable vessels, but that's not all. The company has shared plans to continue its collaboration with Fuller's 360 and eventually introduce a new vessel into service called VS-18, a 100-seater electric hydrofoiling hydrofoiling commuter ferry. So that's just some of the latest news related to technology in boats. And I did talk about earlier this week of how electrification is being implemented in other areas of transportation outside of the typical electric vehicles that we hear in all the news week after week. Also, even though the Trump administration is focused on pushing this type of electrification to the side, as I always say, technology is global, and even if things could seem to be slowing down here in the US, it's always picking up in other parts of the world. Now let's dive into the next article talking about hydrogen. HD Hyundai set to debut production 14-ton hydrogen wheeled excavator. HD Hyundai is set to unveil a production version of its hydrogen fuel cell powered HW155H 14-ton wheeled excavator, one of 10 updated or all new machines rumored to make their debut at this year's Bauma Construction Trade Show. HD Hyundai is leaning into the wheeled excavator renaissance with its new HW155H, a quiet zero-emission asset that can reportedly send between 70 to 100 kilowatts of power to a series of electric motors that should be good for up to 8 hours of continuous operation between each 20-minute refill. A static version of HW155H was shown at Bauma in 2022. At the time, HD Hyundai offered a number of calculations to highlight the potential impact a hydrogen-powered excavator might have on a given fleet, and you could see that information right here in this relevant graph. South Korea is especially committed to a hydrogen as a fuel so much that in fact the nation's government has Hyundai putting the stuff in semi-trucks, forklifts, and even military vehicles. So it looks like Hyundai is not going to be giving up on hydrogen. They definitely wanted to not waste that hydrogen and put it to use, so they decided to put it in some excavators. And my belief is over time, other companies might do the same thing or want to explore this due to the fact that it could be a cheaper option or give them the opportunity to make a decent amount of revenue on the hydrogen powered vehicles that they would sell to customers who want it. So as much as we hear about electric vehicles and batteries and things like that, it looks like hydrogen possibly may have found its place in the transportation world. In the next article, we have BP. BP celebrates the opening of its first TADC fast charging hub in Florida. Executives from Travel Centers America, TA, and BP were joined by local elected officials at a ribbon cutting for the two companies' first DC fast charging hub on I-95 in Jacksonville, Florida, for the first of several such EV charging stations to come online. Frequent road trippers are no doubt familiar with TA's red, white, and blue logo and probably think of the sites as safe, convenient stops in otherwise unfamiliar surroundings. The company hopes those positive associations will carry over as its customers continue to switch from gas to electric at a record pace in 2025 and beyond. The charging hub along the I-95 offers 12 DC fast charging ports, offering up to 400 kilowatts of power for lickety-quick charging. While they're at the TA, EV drivers can visit restrooms, shop at TA's convenience store, and eat at fast food chains like Popeyes and Subway. Other TA centers offer Wi-Fi and pet-friendly amenities as well, making them ideal partners for BP as the two companies builds out their charging networks. Alright, so if you were not familiar with BP expanding into the EV charging space, now you know. And often we hear about the Tesla supercharging network and EVgo and also ChargePoint. We can't forget about BP. They are a traditional big company that is very connected to petrol and gasoline, but they definitely make sure they made a move years ago to make sure that they are connected to the transition to electric vehicles. And this news right here is going to be great for the public. And the reason why is because lots of people travel, and one of the biggest reasons why people don't want electric vehicles is that they don't want to be stuck stranded out in the middle of nowhere late at night or early in the morning or in the middle of the day due to the fact that their vehicle ran out of battery power. So having these TAs up and down the highway gives those people less range anxiety, which could encourage them this year to become electric vehicle owners. Now, since we're speaking about electricity, let's go ahead and talk about solar farms. New York's largest solar farm is a go with 900 $950 million in funding. Clean energy investment manager Greenbacker Renewable Energy has secured $950 million to build what will be New York State's largest solar farm. Greenbacker acquired the 500-megawatt Cider project from renewable energy developer Hecate Energy. Construction started in October, and the project is expected to come online in 2026. Cider will sit on approximately 2,500 acres of land in Genesee County, east of Buffalo, where it began construction in late 2024. The project is expected to generate enough annual clean electricity to power around 120,000 New York households. New York has set a goal of sourcing 70% of its electricity from clean energy by 2030. So from this article, I'm starting to think that solar could possibly be the savior that is going to help many companies and states when it comes to the energy that is needed to not only power households, but these data centers that are going to be built out across the United States. In the next article we have, drone manufacturer gets FAA approval for operations over humans and moving vehicles. Drone manufacturer Dragonfly has received the go-ahead from the Federal Aviation Administration to conduct operations over humans and moving vehicles for a route over Boston. The FAA waiver marks a significant milestone for the company, allowing it to conduct flights of its small unmanned aerial vehicles (UAV) beyond standard operational restrictions. Dragonfly said the permissions cover a prescribed flight route over the city of Boston, emphasizing safety and reliability while operating within challenging and densely populated urban settings. So this article is right on time, because I did previously talk about how one day we're going to have many drones flying above our heads on a consistent basis to the point where it's going to be normal. So even though this is just starting out in Boston, throughout this year, next year, and 2027, you could one day see these drones flying above your head right in your neighborhood. So that's just some of the latest news when it comes to the world of technology. I hope you enjoyed the video, and to continue to stay informed, check out these two videos right here. Let me know what you think, and stay tuned for the next video.